Welcome to Digital Dopamine, how iTech is transforming our minds. This is technically the third message, but we're going to call it part 2, Brain Hacking and Addiction Coding Exposed. Many of us, we wish that we would spend much less time on our phones, but we're increasingly finding it incredibly difficult to disconnect. Our smartphones are very difficult to ignore, and there's a reason for this. It's baked into the very apps that we are using. Let's start off with a very powerful National Geographic documentary hosted by Katie Couric. Katie Couric is a very popular journalist, an award-winning American journalist, and she used to host a program entitled America Inside Out. On an episode that she had, they went in and they started diving into your brain on tech. And Katie shares in the show her own fears of being addicted to her own smartphone. She's afraid that she's having some issues, so she decided to put her brain to the test, along with her and self-proclaimed tech addict Steve Aoki. The two of them went to California State University, Dominguez Hills, to meet with some of the world's actual top experts on tech addiction. Now, Steve is well known. If you follow anything in social media, anywhere, you'll typically see him popping up. He's a DJ, a producer, a social media celebrity, and he's one of the most connected people on the entire planet, with almost 23 million followers on social media, and sometimes he posts more than 100 times in a day. He is hyper connected. He's also obsessed with the human brain, and he actually has a foundation committed to studying that, and he largely funds it with his own money. In a conversation between Katie and Steve, she says, it's not an overstatement to say technology is your life. And he responds, no, it's 100%. Not only on the production, creation, and performance side, he says, but also connecting with my fans on social media. It's all technology. Katie says, don't you worry what technology is doing to your brain? I love his answer. I'm always worried about my brain. This is the most precious thing I have. Amen to that, right? Our brain is the most precious thing we have. Without it, we don't communicate to God. Without it, we don't communicate with each other. Without it, we don't even have a heartbeat. Our brain is absolutely everything for us. It's what runs everything. And he's exactly right. Whether or not you're 60 like Katie, or you're in your 30s like Steve, or you're a teenager, or anywhere in between, we indeed need to come to the realization that our brain is the most precious thing we have, and we really need to be careful with it and guard it well, or we could be setting ourselves up for drastic failure. Katie goes on to say, and this used to be a very popular ad back in the U.S. when I was a child. She says, you remember that old public service ad, "This is your brain on drugs"? Well, they would get this pan and they would say, "This is your brain, hold an egg," and they'd crack it open and put it in a frying pan and show it just sizzling. She says, yeah, remember that? This is your brain on drugs, psst, just getting fried. She says, we're going to find out what our brain looks like on tech. And by the time we're done with this, you're going to be very concerned that what's happening with tech is not too far removed from that old ad. At CSU, research professors Mark Carrier, Larry Rosen, and Chair and Professor of Communications Nancy Cheever, they're actually studying into people's addictions, and their addiction specifically to technology, particularly our smartphones and social media. And their research continues to attract major media attention around the world. Cheever and Carrier, they performed different experiments, and they decided to run these experiments on Katie and on Steve as well. And so they wanted to figure out what happens to the brain. Of course, the scientists already knew this, but Katie and Steve didn't. What happens to their brains when they're distracted by their smartphones? So the first experiment, was to measure the physiological arousal of how smartphones affect our anxiety level. I don't know if you realize that, but these things cause a lot of anxiety. As Katie and Steve watched a video, a computer tracked their heart rate and perspiration. Unannounced to them, the researchers had arranged to have somebody contact them by text, occasionally texting them. At every ding, now they didn't know, Katie and Steve weren't in on this, that the phones were just present while they're watching this video. And at every ding, there was a blue line on the monitor showing these spikes. And what that represented was the fluctuation in their anxiety, caused partly by the release of that stress hormone we talked about, cortisol. Steve said, I kept telling my brain, just block that out and concentrate. Katie said, I was worried about who was trying to get a hold of me. And Dr. Cheever explained what's happening when the phone goes off, you start to obsess about it. The first time you're intrigued, what's that? You're curious, you wonder. Then it goes off again. You start worrying about it. You start actually obsessing about it. Think about it. If we're in this constant state of obsessing and cortisol is coursing through our brains, it's going to cause problems. It can have effects like sleep disorders, depression, and it can result in adrenal overload to where you just start winding up being exhausted, and even sleeping doesn't help recover your exhaustion. You actually literally feel fatigued, and indeed you are, like you have just run a marathon, but you never ran the marathon. Because it's a neurological, it's in your mind, it is, but it's having a physiological response to that stressor of your phone. It's in your brain. Here's the results. Katie had multiple peaks where the subsequent ones were greater. So bing, there it goes. Bing, bing, bing. She was getting more and more stressed out as the notifications were coming in. Interesting, Steve only had one peak, the first one, but his tactic of telling his brain to block it out was actually helpful in that respect. Dr. Cheever told Katie Couric, if just hearing your phone is causing this type of reaction for you, then you need to put away your phone for a couple hours a day. Right then and there, the first little test, he's like, you have a problem. And Katie is not a teen. She's not a child. She's a 60-year-old woman. So here's the newsflash. If you have a human brain, this applies to you. But only if you have a human brain. If you have any other brains, it may not apply to you. I don't know. We can't research those right now. But if you have a human brain, it does apply to you. It does cause stress. It does cause challenges. And so it's vital to not be plugged in all day. It would be wise, frankly, to have a Sabbath, if you will, a rest from our phones and our tech for a period of time every day. Just step away from it. Let's not allow that stress hormone cortisol to keep coursing through our blood by those constant notifications and those constant interruptions. Because long-term health results and problems come from having cortisol and other stress hormones in our body, adrenaline and different things like that all the time. And it wreaks havoc on almost every system in our body, increasing our risk of many health issues, including heart disease, obesity, anxiety, depression, irritability. How do you like to just not be irritated all the time? Headaches, insomnia. Now the second test looked at how our phones affect our ability to actually concentrate. So both Katie and Steve were hooked up to have the activity in their prefrontal cortex is read. Remember, we talked about you really need to have that prefrontal cortex functioning well, because this is where we reason. This is where God speaks to us. So they were measuring across 16 different sections of that frontal lobe, and they were trying to figure out they did figure out how hard it was for them to actually focus and to stay focused. So first, Katie and Steve had to complete a series of tests uninterrupted. Second, complete a series of tests, but this time with their smartphones in the room. First time, just the computer screen and what they're looking at. Second time, the smartphone is going to be in the room. This is quite remarkable. This is Katie's brain, and you can see the little gold or little orange areas there. That is actually the brain activity without her phone. And now, just putting the phone in the room, her brain activity had a 25% harder time to concentrate. See how that's lit up that much more over there, over here on the left? It's not as lit up. It's concentrating. Now she's going to concentrate on the same type of thing, but her phone's going to be present. It was 25% harder for her brain. Her brain had to work 25% more just to understand and comprehend what was going on that screen. Now understand, that's not her picking up the phone. That's just her being distracted by it when it was notifying her. Watch Steve's brain image. So here's Steve's brain image while he's looking at the screen without the phone. But now just simply adding the phone there with a notification, it was 200% harder for him to concentrate. Look at what that brain had to do to just concentrate on what was before him. So friends, if we're trying to concentrate, we're trying to work on homework, we're putting a message together, we're working, with high-powered equipment, whatever it may be, we need to be real careful that we're focused. We got to be very careful that we don't have this thing going bing, 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 or notifying us all the time, because it's going to be maybe even 200% harder to get the job done. It's already hard enough sometimes to get the job done. Why make it twice as hard on yourself? So Katie asked Dr. Carrier, she was like, wait a minute, what does all of this tell you? And here's what he says. With this technology, you don't even feel that your brain had to work harder, though it can be shown in the data. Most psychologists accept that it is impossible to perform many tasks at the same time. Your brain does have some fundamental limitations. She says, so multitasking is basically a myth? Multitasking is mostly a myth. It may take us more time to finish complicated tasks because of our devices. Even just present in your view can actually be distracting. Why? Because we want what's on here. That's because of the thoughts you have about the phone, he continues on. You actually have to inhibit those thoughts in order to be productive. So just in those two little tests, Katie and Steve both showed signs of actually being addicted to their phones. It was recommended by the doctors that they both implement, look at this, a minimum of 2 hours a day of tech-free time. That meant nothing, no tech, not even on the computers, not on the phones, not on their iPads. Actually, just do away with it for 2 solid hours. You have to give your brain, and not when you're sleeping, when you're awake. Let your brain relax and engage in normal life. You're actually causing it harder, to be more difficult for yourself. So they actually made, at the end of the day, and during the series, you can actually go online and watch the whole series. It's quite fascinating. They made a pact with each other. They said, okay, so let's embrace the doctor's suggestion, and that they would each take 2 hours off a day of tech-free time. And they were going to hold each other accountable. I don't know how it's gone for them, but I'm sure if they embraced it, it has helped. Now, after our first 2 sessions, you might be tempted to think, well, all of this screen time is really about that developing child's mind. But no, we just looked at a 30-year-old and a 60-year-old, and they were found to be addicted to their phones. We're not even talking about the content on the phone. It was just the phone dinging. Imagine what content you could engage in on that phone. Scientists have found that and this is in a fascinating New York Times article referencing different studies, our ability to focus is being undermined by bursts of information. Emails, phone calls, texts, snaps, tweets, notifications, and other incoming information fractures our thinking, causing problems with concentration and deep thought. Of course, we've already looked at some of that in our previous sessions. Adam Ghazali A neuroscientist at the University of California, San Francisco said, the non-stop interactivity is one of the most significant shifts ever in the human environment. We are exposing our brains to an environment and asking them to do things that we weren't necessarily designed to do. We know already there are consequences. In fact, in a new study from Microsoft Corporation, here's what they found as well. People now generally lose concentration after 8 seconds. 8 seconds! Highlighting the effects of an increasingly digitized lifestyle on the brain. The study continues on. Heavy multi-screeners find it difficult to filter out irrelevant stimuli. They're more easily distracted by multiple streams of media, the report said. And there are powerful reasons why God said to be still and know that I am God. We are so distracted, we are hyper aroused, and we don't know when to stop, how to stop, and when it's time to stop and even sleep at night, our brains can't shut off. I understand. I have that challenge. Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. So let's dive into brain hacking, or it's known as addiction coding. Brain hacking is the application of techniques or technologies to affect an individual's mental state, their cognitive process, or their level of function. It's a specific design to impact our brains. Basically put, it's how Silicon Valley is hacking in our brains and engineering our phones, the applications we use, and social media to get us hooked and hijack human thinking and even our actions. And I believe all of this is going to play a role in the last days, by the way. I'd like to introduce you to Tristan Harris. Harris has been called the conscience of Silicon Valley. Young man, intelligent young man, and he worked with Stanford Persuasive Technology Labs, quite a mouthful, and he was a design ethicist at Google. What's a design ethicist? By the way, there's all kinds of jobs in Silicon Valley that you and I have never heard of. A design ethicist is how you ethically steer people's thoughts. You ethically steer their thoughts, right? I guess that would be what I am. I would be a design ethicist. I'm trying to ethically steer your thoughts toward Christ, all right? But the problem he found was he had to eventually quit because his conscience would no longer allow him to take part in controlling users' behaviors through these apps, unethically manipulating their online experiences. Yeah, praise God. Here's what he says. And this was also in a recent 60 Minutes interview. And he says, I think we have to ask, are those systems of social media, are they genuinely looking out for what will make society most well off? Or because of their business model, are they most concerned with what will capture people's attention? Harris exposed what the tech industry is doing to its loyal customers to reporter Anderson Cooper. Cooper asks this question. He says, so is this something that engineers keep in mind as they are designing the new bells and whistles? They're thinking, how can I keep people addicted to their phones? And our insider says, your phone is like a menu, and it's always being populated by choices, whether it's through notifications or what shows up on the feed, and people think that this is just neutral. What they miss is there are 1,000 engineers on the other side of the screen whose job is to put whatever should be on that menu that will capture your attention. Do you think parents understand the complexities of what their kids are dealing with when it comes to their phone apps and social media? Harris has responded, no. And I think this is really important because there's this narrative that, oh, well, I just guess that they're just doing this like we used to gossip on the phone, back in our day. But what this misses is that your telephone in the 1970s didn't have 1,000 engineers on the other side of it who were redesigning it to work with other phones. and then updating the way your telephone worked every day to make it more persuasive. Holding up his phone, Harris explained further, "This thing is a slot machine. Every time I check my phone, I'm playing the slot machine to see, ooh, what did I get?" This is one way to hijack people's minds and create a habit, to form a habit. What you do is you make it when someone pulls a lever, sometimes they get a reward, an exciting reward. And it turns out that this design technique can be embodied inside of all of these products. So what they've learned is that we can bake into the apps, we can bake into these products a way that we can make you desire what's on the phone. Those who gamble, by the way, maybe with slot machines, they know the power of a slot machine. When the gambler walks into the casino, do you know what happens immediately to that brain? Dopamine. Just walking into it, even driving to the casino, you know, because your anticipatory process of that reward and that environment, you walk in, and just walking in, dopamine, because of that anticipation of those potential rewards, they're all lit up and they're bright and they got all these sounds. So you have visual stimulation, you have audible stimulation, dopamine. Now it's not juicing you so high, but you're getting that reward. Man, the machines are all lit up. One catches their attention. Oh, I want that one. Dopamine. And then the money is inserted. A little more dopamine. The excitement grows. A little bit more of a dopamine reward. And the person's like, oh, I'm just so excited. Maybe an anxiety, a little anxiousness arrives in them. And they pull that handle, or nowadays they press that button. And this begins what's called the magic of maybe. The magic of maybe. Maybe I could just win this time. What if they all line up and ding, 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 ding? And of course it's with the sounds and the lights and you win. Whoa, big time dopamine rush. And so what happens is you put that money in, you pull that handle or you press that button, and the visual and the audio cortexes light up as those wheels start to spin. The dopamine kicks in. This is exciting. The person says, oh, I love this. The first wheel stops, dopamine. The second one, anticipation increases, dopamine. Oh, it actually lined up with the first one, and more dopamine. The third wheel stops. Oh, you lost. You lost. A bit of stress, a bit of anxiety, actually built in on purpose. Did you know that? The casinos learn that if we let you win sometimes, and we make it randomized, it's called a randomized reward process, to where if you don't just pay them off after every 10 or whatever, obviously that wouldn't work. People would game the system, right? So they learned if we help give them a little bit of success, and then stress them out for a while and not let them have any stress or any success, then when they have another little success, they get another hit of that dopamine and they stay there longer to gamble. And so it's that thrill of the unknown. The gambler stays longer and they pay more money because that reward pathway is flooded with dopamine. Now, let's just bring this home to us and our little pocket slot machines. If you've had your smartphone for a while, just the act of pulling this out of your pocket starts the reward cascade. It starts the dopamine. Just pulling that out of your pocket. That reward pathway is stimulated because our brains, just like the gambler, our brains have learned from the thousands of times when we've taken it out before, it's associated with a dopaminergic experience. There's going to be something here that my brain likes, that kind of lights it up for me. So the habit of wanting to get on our phones, the magic of maybe, the unknown, the desire for novelty, which is a base thing we need as human beings, is perfectly put together in this device. And so we start to chase and we start to desire. I pull the slot machine lever as I open this thing up. ding, 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 ding. I'd get a little bit of dopamine in my mind. It's true. And then as I enter you used to have to enter your code. Now I just look at it and now the thing opens up, right? It reads my face. Better than a thumbprint, they say. But as soon as it opens up, dopamine. Because it's the magic of maybe. What's there? I can gain access to my sweet virtual world. I'm in. A feeling of relief comes because it actually did open up. Oh, and I do have a battery charge. You actually get stressed because you don't have enough battery in here because you know you're going to wipe it out because we're not on it for 5 seconds. We're not on it for just a minute. So the wheel literally starts spinning in our mind like that slot machine. And the apps, they're so colorful and they're so inviting. They invite my attention. Wait a minute. Some of them have these red badges on them with numbers in that. Dopamine. Whoa. Who texted me? I need to look. Who replied? Who liked or heard something that I had posted or I had written? It's the promise of reward. It's that promise of more dopamine. And so we dive into this new with our novelty-loving minds that God created us with. So many choices. Okay, well, I'll start with my note. Facebook has a lot of notifications. Facebook, the second wheel stops. Ding, 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 ding. New stories there. Hey, let's see if anyone's liked my last post. Anticipation builds. I wonder what comments my friends have left for me. The third wheel stops. Wait a minute. Only 6 people liked my post? What? Nobody even shared this. What's wrong? What did we do wrong? What's the deal? Only 2 comments? What went wrong? Well, that's lame. I didn't win this time. So literally, we get that little stress hormone starts to come in. And so we have this yin and yang. It's not even good. It's like a seesaw of our biological, neurological chemicals going back and forth. Stress and dopamine and stress and dopamine. You think it's going to burn us out? All the time we're on these things doing that. And so what's crazy is this cortisol released into our blood is causing us to feel that tenseness and that stress and that anxiousness. In fact, what they've discovered is that some of these dopaminergic activities can be extremely powerful. Up to a 400% spike in dopamine, depending on what you're engaging in. That is highly unnatural. You have to do some extraordinary things in the natural world to get yourself up to that high of dopamine. In fact, one of them is taking drugs like cocaine. Yeah, we can juice our little kids' brains and the teenage brains and the 20-year-old brain, the 30-year-old and the 80-year-old brain. We can jack them to the height of actual drug use levels. That stresses me out. There's some cortisol just went into my blood learning that right now. And I've heard people say, come on, brother Christian. I've never got jacked or I've never got high like you're saying on my phone. That's ridiculous. I agree. It's not the same kind of high that you would have with a prescription or with a street drug. It's a different kind of high. And it's important for us to differentiate between ingesting mind-altering stimulants and behavioral stimulants that do change the brain. Both of them change the brain, and not for the better. Behavioral addiction is much like substance addiction, but it's a newer option that's never been available before. There wasn't a way before where behavior could rise to the level of substances that were compelling enough to cause addiction. The advent of high-speed internet and the smartphone changed all of that. And for anything to be addictive in nature, there are 2 components that are needed. There is a behavior we enjoy doing in the short term, engaging in it compulsively, coming back to it over and over and over again. So we do it even though we know that is probably harming our well-being. I really shouldn't be doing this right now. I really need to be doing this, but we continue to do it. Just like the drug user. I shouldn't do that, or just like the alcoholic. I shouldn't be doing this right now. I really should be doing something else, but they continue to do it. That is the perfect illustration of addiction, where your will is basically taken away because this thing is so compelling. And we like what it does. So now we live, don't miss this. We live in a world where technology has become so advanced that we are able for the first time to deliver the type of mental and emotional rewards that you need for a system to be addictive. It was never there before until the advent of the smartphone, which will make you really dumb if you're not careful. So now if there's a behavior that I enjoy on my phone, can I engage in it compulsively? Yeah, because it's with me all the time now. It's in my pocket, like Peter said, all the time now. It's always with me. So can I engage with it compulsively? Yes. You ever heard the term compulsive drinker or a compulsive gambler? Well, how about a compulsive digital addict? So it gives me what I want. It gives me that immediate feedback on posts and tweets and snaps and entertainment, endless web searching. We go here, we go there, we look at this, we look at that. And if I'm able to do it anywhere because I have fast Wi-Fi or my cellular network allows me to do it in the bush of New Zealand, and I can get that immediate rapid fire dopamine feedback loop, it's called, we now have all the necessary components which can lead to behavioral addiction and even neurologic addiction. And this was never, ever possible before just a short time ago. Now I can do anything, including highly immersive first-person shooter gaming. In real time with others around the world, I can shop, I can socialize, I can chat, I can text, I can email, you name it, everywhere, all the time, right on a highly integrated, sophisticated computer that fits in my pocket. The potential for addiction has been optimized. Psychologists tell us we develop addictions when we have a psychological need, like feeling bored. So if we're so bored all the time, we haven't learned how to deal with that, we can develop addictions. Feeling lonely, lost, what do I do next? Not sure of our path. We feel out of control, or I feel like I'm not making a difference in the world. And as we start focusing in on these things and we don't find any solutions to them, we can actually start to develop addictions to help numb these psychological needs that need to be filled. So we go to our screens. And when we escape to it, we swipe and we feel that, good feeling. We actually start, sucking on our adult dopamine pacifiers. Or our children do. And so we look to escape or pacify these feelings, and this is why we run to escape our reality. We start to live an unnatural digital reality. And we're going to be talking about social media and all of that and everything that's going on with that coming up. And it's quite disturbing just how much it's gutting, not just our young people, but society as a whole. And so, like these dopaminergic screen activities, ingested drugs hit that reward pathway and have what the screen addiction doesn't have is that physical, immediate mental impairment that's visible. So when someone takes that drugs or drinks that alcohol, you can see like, wow, they're like kind of altered. We don't have that hitting us, but neurologically, whoa, we actually are having a problem. So it's much easier to get away with or not recognize the addiction because it doesn't look like this guy's addicted. You follow what I'm saying? But nonetheless, within just a few short minutes of testing, Katie Couric and Steve Aoki both had signs of being addicted to their phones. And they're functioning individuals. They're highly successful individuals, but they're stressing themselves out. They're going to burn out. They're going to have some major issues if they don't take care of it. So we have to be careful neurologically, emotionally, and socially. The impact as drugs can be the same. So let's pull that little lever again. The magic of maybe. Let's check our news feed. I get in. Oh, this is great. I scroll. Oh, I'm in the news feed. Wherever you're getting your news feed, whether it's on Facebook or anywhere else. What's interesting is I start scrolling. Did you know that before there was no such thing as endless scroll? Now you can scroll until you die. It's never going to stop. because these AI computers are fast enough to load your feed with what they know you want. Why? We're going to get into this in our last message if we have time. There is an AI, artificial intelligence, set up for each one of us. I, Christian Berdahl, have an artificial intelligence called Christian Berdahl, and everything I have done from the moment I got on the internet to today, everything is there. It knows me better than I know myself. And this is real. This is not science fiction, mumbo jumbo movie stuff. This is really happening. So what happens is, as I scroll, dopamine. Why? Because I know I'm going to find, oh, look at that, so funny. That's so cute. Oh, look at that. Yeah, we share, right? And then we scroll. Oh, ooh, what's that? The president said what again? Man, I wish he would just zip it, right? All these things start feeding because they know what actually irritates you. They know what you like and what you don't like. It's not an organic feed. It's a highly cultivated feed to get you to stay on there longer. Scroll. Yeah, I know. You keep advertising. I've seen your ad 100 times. You keep scrolling and scrolling. Okay, let's just get out of here. I've seen it. Let's get out. Oh, let's check our Twitter. Again, the maybe of magic. So this is what happens. We go from app to app to app to app. Dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. The magic of maybe. We love what? Even as a child, we love novelty. We like social connection, right? We like reward. It's all baked in here. So every time we go hunting for that new thing, we're just juicing more dopamine. Juice. And we check that Twitter. In fact, oh, come on, that little bird goes like this, right? And he waits just a little second before he gives you, do you know, there's no reason, it's not going out there to check anything. It's just there, just that little hint of wait. When you drag that to refresh and it gives you news stories, that little thing starts to spin, there's no need for it to sit there and spin except for create a little anxiety in you on purpose. It's already been downloaded, by the way. It's not going, well, I'll go grab some more. No. That's all been curated that fast for you. So we continue, and then we continue, and the little wheels, they continue to spin, and we're waiting, and it populates with new things, and you go and you try to find, and it's endless, and you just keep going and going and going and going. Endless scroll was there on purpose. And then we're done with that. Where do we go next? Well, young people usually go to Snapchat or Instagram. As soon as you just go there, dopamine again. And then this young person's going, oh man, the school bell just rang. I gotta go. Yeah, all this is taking place on the playground. All this is taking place in the bathroom. All this is taking place everywhere, in the car, in school. While the teacher thinks that the kids are getting away with it and the teacher can't see them. And then here's what the text says. Don't worry, little man, you go off to school. Don't worry, little mind that should be trained up for Jesus. You go. Come on, go back. Because we'll pull you right back in. We promise we'll pull you right back in. We'll always be here for you, and we will let you know if anything happens while you're away. In fact, we'll notify you if someone posts on your wall, if someone likes one of your pictures, if someone comments on anything you've ever said, we'll let you know. Why? We want you back into our world. If a friend posts something, we'll let you know. If there's a new story, we'll let you know. If someone sends a picture or posts a picture, we'll let you know. If it's your Facebook anniversary, we'll let you know. My Facebook anniversary? Anything to get me back in here. If someone sent you a snap, if your snap streak is in danger of ending, you realize one of the things that Snapchat has done is created this thing where people have streaks, they're called. How long can you be in communication with that person without breaking it? And you would think it's a good thing. Doug, every day we're going to do our snap together. And we're going to see how many days we can go. People have done this for years. But what it turns into is not communication, just keep the Snapchat going. Keep the streak going. It's a cheap replacement for actual communication. Anybody starting to see maybe there's some problems with all of this? Lord have mercy. So the main difference, though, think about this. This is what's crazy, is that the main difference between the actual slot machines, for example, and our little slot machines is that the actual slot machines were less addicting. Think about that. The gambler couldn't stay there all the time. The gambler couldn't take that big machine with them home, right? No. They actually finally got a natural relief from it, and they eventually sometimes even get ushered out. Time for you to go home, buddy. And they go and they sleep it off until they come back. When are we sleeping it off? People are falling asleep with these. Young people fall asleep with them on, with the cameras, and they're sleeping. They wake up and they go, oh, good morning. It's really interesting what's happening. Our digital slot machines are with us, and this behavior of constantly exposing ourselves to stimuli with those intermittent rewards all throughout our waking hours, pulling that little lever, if you will, all day long, every day our brains are just not wired for it. And we're paying the price as a society. We're in trouble, friends. We're legitimately in trouble. And it can continue to lead to cognitive problems, not just behavioral, but actual cognitive problems, where we have this fragmented thinking because everything we're getting is in these little short bursts of information, little quick, little text, little chat. If you write a text to somebody and it's long, apparently that's a cardinal sin. No. The reality is we long to communicate with one another. We long to commune with one another, and we're now doing it through this mediated version of communication, and it will never be effective. It will never be good enough. It won't satisfy that moment when you know you've connected with that person. It's just not there through a mediated source. And so all of this tapping, all the swiping, all this texting, all of this can actually permanently, and this scares me, permanently reduce our capacity for concentration and deeper thought. Our society needs to learn to concentrate more and have deeper thoughts, especially as we approach the end of time, my friends. And so what's happening, I believe, is a design by the master deceiver who wants to get in and mess with the brain so much so he doesn't have to come in and physiologically come in and destroy and scramble our brains. He's figured out how I can get you addicted and I can control you. I can turn you on. I can turn you off. I can keep you from sleeping. I can keep you from eating. I can keep you from going to church over and over and over again. And the devil begins to win. Over 75% of us now, this is amazing. Over 75% of us get on our phones without even thinking about it. We just get on it. We don't even know why we've picked it. We don't have anyone specifically to call or anything. No, I just got to get on. Why? Because we have developed the habit. The habit is there. I guess that is the definition of a habit, right? You do it without even thinking about it. When the iPhone came out in 2007, they were not as advanced, so we owned the iPhones. But now, these iTech companies have outpaced our minds, and now the phone owns us. We're doing ourselves and our children a heartbreaking disservice because many people have developed a tolerance for this level of neuronal excitement. And this can lower, as we talked about, our baseline of dopamine, which in turn decreases our ability as human beings to experience that feel-good pleasures of normal life. That walk in nature no longer is just satisfying. Sitting down and having a conversation with somebody is just boring. Watching a program like this on TV, it's just so boring. It depletes the joy out of life that could actually be ours. The capacity for feeling good is actually eroding before our eyes. And Dr. Nicholas Kardaras, one of the world's foremost addiction experts and leading expert on kids and digital addiction, we heard from him in our previous session. He writes, naturally dopaminergic activities, eating or sex, usually come only after effort and delay. But addictive drugs, addictive behaviors like gambling or video gaming provide a shortcut to this reward process, which floods the nucleus accumbens with dopamine without serving a biological function. Unfortunately, nature hasn't provided an easy way to withstand that dopamine onslaught. So that when people become addicted, they experience a dopamine reduction or shut down in order to give some relief to their overwhelmed receptor cells. There, we go back now to Tristan Harris. He says, there's a whole playbook of techniques that get used to get you using the product for as long as possible. Anderson Cooper asked, is Silicon Valley programming apps or are they programming people? And he says, the answer from our insiders is inadvertently, whether they want to or not, they are shaping the thoughts and feelings and actions of people. They are programming people. There's always this narrative that technology is neutral and it's up to us to choose how we use it. This is just not true. It's not neutral. They want you to use it in particular ways and for long periods of time because that's how they make their money. And he started thinking, when is all of this adding up to an actual benefit to my life? If we were just to stop and ask that question, is this actually adding any benefit to my life? We need to really look at that. We should ask ourselves these kinds of questions. In a document he drafted after contemplating this question, he wrote this in the document, which was circled around Google where he was working. Even the president of Google read it, but no changes were made. Never before in the history have a handful of people at a handful of technology companies shaped how 2 billion people think and feel every day with the choices they make about these screens. There are more users on Facebook than followers of Christianity. There are more people on YouTube than followers of Islam. I don't know of a more urgent problem than this. Interesting to me, his document that he sent around had 144 pages in it. Made me think of the 144,000 standing at the end of time, right? But he says the problem is these apps and the social media apps and the different ones that we're on is weakening our relationships to each other and destroying our kids' ability to focus. It was widely circulated in Google, and many of them read it. It didn't lead to any changes, so he, in his conscience, had to quit. I could not be part of this any longer. Harris was quick to point out, it's not because anyone is evil or has bad intentions. I don't know if the person is a Christian or not. I do know there are evil people. I do know there are evil intentions because I understand the great controversy. I'm not here to judge them, but we need to be careful and have our eyes wide open. He says it's not because anyone is evil or has bad intentions. It's because the game is getting attention at all costs. These products are shaping what 2 billion people think every day. I mean, that's more power than any government in history. Think about that. And these are just tech companies shaping how 2 billion people think and act every day. So Harris decided to co-found a nonprofit entitled Center for Humane Technology. And today a team of deeply concerned former tech insiders that worked at all these companies and different CEOs who actually intimately understand what I'm talking about and how this technology can hijack our mind. They are on a mission to drive a comprehensive shift toward humane technology. And boy, they're meeting up with a lot of resistance, as you might imagine. I encourage you to visit their website, Center for Humane Technology. Other industry insiders are talking about this as well. One of them is Ramsey Brown, a computer programmer who understands how the brain works, and he knows how to write code that will get the brain to do certain things. Brown has a doctorate in neuroinformatics, and he co-founded Dopamine Labs. Interesting name. Brown and his colleagues write powerful computer code for apps. Here's what he says. When should I make you feel a little extra awesome to get you to come back into the app longer? The programs are designed to provoke neurological responses. Cooper, investigating, says, so you're trying to figure out how to get people coming back to use the screen. Exactly, Brown says. You're part of a controlled set of experiments that are happening in real time across you and millions of other people. So this is interesting. The computer code he creates, by the way, actually finds the best moment to give you one of those rewards, the likes. The likes, when you post something and those likes. See, everybody thinks that those likes come in just organically and naturally. No. They're manipulating even when they give you the likes. It's not naturally happening because they know, I'll let him tell you. I don't need to get ahead of myself. But he says the likes actually have no value. We assign value to it because sometimes we're gaining our worth from that and our value from it. Right? Some people assign a lot of value to it, other people not so much. But Brown says that it will help you trigger your brain to want more. He says, for example, on Instagram, he reports, some of those likes come in a sudden rush. They're holding some of them back for you to let you know later in a big burst. Well, wait a minute. Why that moment? There's an algorithm that predicted for this user right now, we think we can see an improvement in his behavior. In other words, stay longer if you give it to him in this burst instead of that burst. So even the likes are not coming in a natural, organic way. They're saying, wait a second. In fact, I had a conversation earlier where it's interesting. Sometimes we don't get the likes right away when we're looking at our video feed, and sometimes they come in later. Because they know when you're on the app. They know where you're tapping. They know where we're going. Even all of our computer clicks, they watch and monitor everything. Even if your mouse is just hovering over an area, you'll get an ad over that thing show up later. Because they're watching everything. We'll get into that later. And so Anderson says, wait a minute, we're guinea pigs? And here's what the insider expert that's paid big money to develop these apps says. You're guinea pigs. You are guinea pigs in the box, pushing the button, sometimes getting the likes. And they're doing this to keep you in there. You don't pay for Facebook. Advertisers pay for Facebook. You get to use it for free because your eyeballs are what's being sold there. That's the whole business model. We got to do everything we can to keep you on these apps so we can give you all of these ads and the merchants can sell their goods and wares. It's about money. It's always about money, right? It seems like. But even beyond that, I believe there's a more sinister undertone. I don't even know if some of these people know they're being used and being moved and even being inspired perhaps by the devil and his agents. I don't know that. I would assume it's happening because the devil's everywhere. And why would he leave one of the most powerful, influential technology companies in the world? Why would he just leave that one? I'll just let God have that one. No. The devil wants to get in and seek and destroy anyone whom he can. And then Anderson says, well, that's an interesting way to look at it, that you're not the customer for Facebook. You're not the customer. You didn't sign a check to Facebook, but Coca-Cola does. Think about that. We get it for free. We're paying with our attention. We're paying with our eyeballs. And the longer we look at our screens, the more data these companies collect about us. They know us better and better. We get more and more targeted ads. My son just told me just yesterday, he said, Dad, look at this. And he pulled it up and he said, hey, 22-year-old, are you looking for, and it was very specific, that's his age. And it was very specific about what he'd been looking at and talking about lately. And now he's getting an ad to better his life as a 22-year-old and get this kind of training. It's just happening everywhere, all the time. And so Brown says, you spend half of your time on Facebook just scrolling to find one good piece worth looking at. It's happening because they're engineered to become addictive. So this is by design, and it's happening because they're taking advantage of that, remember, built-in psychological vulnerability that our minds have, that magic of maybe, that new, the novelty, the unexpected that we crave. God put it inside of us. He says, you're almost saying it's like there's an addiction code. Yeah, that is the case. that since we figured out to some extent how these pieces of the brain handle addiction, how they're working, people have figured out how to juice them further and how to bake that information into these apps. There are different kinds of jobs you can get in Silicon Valley at these big tech firms. You can be an attention engineer. That's your job. You're an attention engineer. Engagement experts. They are some of the largest employers of psychologists now and behavioral experts. They all work in concert with the goal of getting us addicted because it maximizes the profits that can be extracted from our attention and from our data. And everyone wins except for the user. And think of it this way. The heads of these companies don't engage in it, and they don't let their kids either. Yeah, they know. They certainly know now because all the studies have come out. They may not have in the first days when they were creating it all, but now to claim ignorance, not going to work. Peter Wybrow, PhD, director of UCLA's Institute for Neuroscience and Behavior. Our brains are wired for finding immediate reward. With technology, novelty, the new, is the reward. You essentially become addicted to novelty as those new dopamine, tickling text, and social media updates feed into our ancient pleasure pathway. And so we have a problem, my friends. It's causing challenges with the brain. I don't even have time to get into, we'll have to get into in our next session, just exactly what's going on in the mind. In fact, they're finding that the brain is shrinking in certain areas, that it has damage just like if you were taking cocaine or methamphetamines or ketamines or a highly psychoactive marijuana. So if we can do this and give this to our children and give this to our young children and our infants and our teenagers and our 20s and 30s and 40s and 50-something-year-olds, do you think we're going to have a problem in the near future? We're going to have a bigger problem than we even have right now. We already have a big problem. So I want to encourage you to be careful with your devices. Sometimes just having it in the room, having it right there with you, can cause your stress levels and anxiety to increase. And there's enough stuff going on in this world right now. Let's be careful with these beautiful minds that God's given us. And we'll continue in our next session. Let's have a word of prayer. Father in heaven, Lord, thank you so much for this time that we can come and reason together. I think that day is fast approaching when people will just not be able to reason anymore without you working a miracle in their minds, because you've said that you will renew right thinking within us. So, Father, I give you my mind. I surrender it to you, and I say, please, Father, fix in me that needs to be rewired and rewire it in a way that brings honor and glory to you. Lord, I pray that you would help my brothers and sisters, the family of God that's listening right now, wherever they may be. You would help us, each one, to make those choices to better protect this beautiful mind, the most valuable possession we have outside of Jesus Christ, our Savior. We pray this in His name. Amen. God bless you. May your names remain in the book of life.